Hello friends, and welcome back to our Fast API tutorial. In this video, which is the 33rd and final video in this series, I'm going to touch briefly on just a couple of little extra things like static files, testing, and very briefly discussing debugging, but that's a bit of a longer topic, but whatever, let's get right into it. So you can see we've got our app up and running. Nothing really showing up here. Good, we're good. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to handle static files. So static files, if you're building an API, sometimes don't matter. I mean, if you're going to be hosting your own static files that are going to be served to the front end, whether it's whether it's a style sheet or whether it's images or something like that, you're going to want to have something to handle this. So what we're going to do, first thing, we're going to import the static files package from Fast API, static files, import static files. And now all we're going to do, we have our app. It should be up and running. Yep, I've uncommented it out up at the top here. I'm no longer using this chimichang app one that I used from the last video. Now we're just going to mount to the static endpoint, and we're going to declare static files, directory equals static, name equals static. Okay, now let's touch on just a couple of things here. So first thing that we're going to touch on is the fact that we're mounting this, we're mounting static files to this location. So if we go to static, nothing is going to actually work because you can see we have this error down here on the bottom, which I'll touch on in a second. But what this is going to do is this is separate from an API router. This is just going to kind of just separately mount it to the app. I don't really know how else to explain it. Next, let's add our static directory. Now we save, and let's see what happens. Let's see if this automatically reruns. Will it? No, because it didn't recognize that as a change, and you can see now we have not found because there's nothing in it. Let's just create, we can do a simple HTML file that I will call index, and this is still not going to work because we have to actually look at index.html. Now it worked. Let's just go ahead and hello, Fast API tutorial part 33. Let's add a little bit of style tags in here. Nope. Why do you hate me so much, PyCharm? For the root, we'll do box sizing, border box, margin 0, padding 0. And then for body, let's set height will be 100 viewport heights. Display will be grid, and place content will be center. By the way, I have a I had a tweet. There was a tweet that I saw that I'm gonna pull it up. No, I'm not gonna be able to find it in time. I'll post the link in the description. So someone was explaining how easy it is to center a div, if you will. I'm going to center the H1, hello world. And if we refresh this page, you can see we have hello world. But what they failed to realize in the tweet is if you don't set the height to 100, like they had these two lines. And the issue was if you're not explicitly setting the height, it's not going to center it on the page itself. Maybe they were only talking about centering horizontally, in which case you can really just do margin 0 auto, and it should work, unless, yeah, I need to explicitly set the full width here as well, 100%. Let's see. No, it doesn't like that. 100 viewport widths. Refresh. Why does it not like this? Oh, I probably I probably need to, hold on a second. This is unrelated to what we're working on. I want to figure this out very quickly. Margin 0 auto. Refresh. And then do we need width 100%, maybe? No? You still don't like that, huh? This is really going to bother me. Whatever. If somebody wants to throw something in the comments here about what I'm doing wrong here, but I do know that this will work. Go back here and refresh, and there we go. It is fully centered on the page. So this, you can see this is a static file. Will it? Yeah, it automatically reformats that. So we are serving this static file index.html, and that's how we do it. So if you want to serve, let's create a main.css, and now we will add these. Link rel equals style sheet main.css. Let's refresh the page, and you can see we still get exactly the same thing. And if we were to go to main.css, we would get our CSS. Okay, so those are static files, fairly simple. Next thing I'm going to touch on is testing. So in order to do this, first thing we need to do is we need to install Pytest. So I'm going to add it to my requirements.txt, and I'm going to install the requirement. And while that's going, let's go ahead. I'm going to close this, don't need log.txt. I will leave this up for now. Great, package has been installed. So now what we're going to do, in the documentation on the page, on the main Fast API website, it shows, it includes some stuff in the same file. I'm not going to put any tests in the main.py. I'm going to add a test directory, and then we're going to create a new file, test main.py, and we'll add that. Okay, so now our app, and I'm going to unmount that for now. So now let's kind of create some functionality in here. So we're going to say fake secret token equals cone of silence. Fake DB is going to be a dict. Foo is a dict. ID equals foo. Title equals foo. Description equals there goes my hero. Next one. Nope. I want now another dict. Bar equals dict. ID equals bar. Title equals bar. Description equals the bartenders. Okay, so we've got our fake database. Now we're going to create an item. Class item, base model. ID is a string. Title is a string. Description is a string or none equals none. You can also use optional string equals none, things like that. There have been some people commenting about which format to use for optional strings. There are a few different ways you can do it. Next, app.get items, item ID. By the way, this is, I think, one of the things I'm not really too fond of as it pertains to GitHub Copilot in PyCharm. It should be running right now, but for some reason it's not. I think I would need to restart. Let's just restart. Exit. And let me reopen it. Fast API tutorial. And now let's see. And if this is going to be the case, that after a little bit of time I'm going to have to restart the IDE every time, then I will not be paying for GitHub Copilot as helpful as it may be. Async def read main item ID string x token string equals header, and we're going to just say that it's required. If x token is not equal to fake secret token, then raise HTTP exception status code equals 400, detail equals invalid x token header. If item ID not in fake DB, raise HTTP exception status code equals 404, detail equals item not found. Otherwise, return fake DB item ID. And there are other ways you can handle something like this. You know, you don't necessarily have to, like, you need to include this so that this doesn't break, this line doesn't break. You could do something like item equals fake db.get item ID, and then if item is none, you would raise the exception. That's another way you can handle that sort of functionality. Next, app.post. Let's see if GitHub Copilot is going to do anything. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I guess not. Response model is going to be item on both of these. Sorry about that. Response model equals item. Async def create item, item, item. X token string equals header. And I am going to copy this, and then if item.id in fake db, raise HTTP exception, status code equals 400, detail equals item already exists. And then fake db item.id equals item, return item. There. Okay. So we've got our functionality here. Now we need to actually update the test file. So here, we're going to import a couple of things. From fastapi.test, nope, not templating, test client, import test client. From .main, nope, that's not what I want. From .main, import app. Client equals test client app. Now, we're going to add in some tests here. Test read item, response equals client.get items foo, headers equals x token, cone of silence. And then all we want to do is we want to assert that the response.status code equals 200, if I can spell. We want to assert that the response.json equals ID foo, and I'm not setting this equals, it needs to be a double equals, title foo, and description, there goes my hero. Save. And now this should work. Okay, so this is just one simple test. So let's just go ahead and try it. So I can actually, I don't think the server's running. I think I stopped it. Yeah, it stopped because I closed the IDE. So now let's just run Pytest, and hopefully it doesn't yell at me because I'm importing above the parent. Let's see. No module named requests. Let me see. Okay, so it's telling me that I don't have a module called mock, and I don't have a module called requests. So let's add them. Mock requests. Install requirements. I don't know. Let's see. It's installing. Package is installed successfully. Let's try it again. Pytest. 2 errors. What do you not like? Attempted relative import with no known parent package. Okay, that's what I thought was going to happen. So now let's do fast API. You know what? I'm just going to move this out here because I don't want to have to deal with this right now. So I moved it into the main directory. So now I can just import relative from at the current level. Let's try one more time. 1 error, 3 errors. It doesn't like it. Hold on, I'm going to pause this while I try and figure out what's going on. Okay, so I tried a couple of things. None of them seemed to be working. I'll explain why very briefly. So my first thought was that because there was a dash, and it was fast API dash tutorial, that maybe it wasn't liking that, so I made it an underscore. That didn't seem to work just by running Pytest. And the reason for that is because this is going to run Pytest on the entire, on the entire folder. So including the Pytest cache, including the environment, which includes all of the all of the dependencies. So you know, it might not be able to find everything that's in here. So it's going to go through. So we installed Python multipart, and it include it's looking for those tests as well. So the way that you can handle that is by just doing pytest test main.py, and it will only test that file. Okay. So now let's go ahead and just add a few more tests in here, just so you can see what's going on. Def test read item bad token. Response equals client.get. Let's see if it worked that time. 400. That's not bad. This will be invalid x token header. So Copilot did work that time. Okay, let's do the next one. Def test read inexistent item. Response equals client dot get items dot baz, and this will be, yeah, cone of silence is fine. Assert response status code is 404. Assert response.json is item not found. Okay, so GitHub Copilot is kind of cool. Okay. Def test create item. Maybe it's just pulling directly from the docs. That could be. Client.post items. Let's see. Title is going to be bar. No, so we don't want that. We want foobar. We want to create a new item. And we'll say the foo bartender. X token needs to be cone of silence. Response status code is 200. ID is going to be foobar. Foobar. And this is going to be the foo bartender. And I'm going to manually set the ID here. ID foobar. Okay, a couple more. Def test create item bad token. Response equals client.post items. Headers equals, come on, help me out here. X token bad header. and then JSON equals, doesn't really matter, ID, Baz, title, Baz, description, drop the Baz, whatever that means. Okay. Assert response dot status code equals 400. Assert response dot JSON equals detail double equals. Double equals, Jeff. Double equals. Come on. Invalid X token header. Save. Come on, Black. Let's work your magic here. Last thing. Def test create existing item. So you want to test when you're doing this sort of thing, you want to test not only successful stuff but also failures. So here, response equals client.post. Nope, I don't want to do that. I'm going to copy some of this. So this is going to be cone of silence. This is going to be foo, and this doesn't really, the rest of it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to leave it because it's just going to check by ID. So we want to assert that response.status code equals 400. Assert response.json equals detail item already exists. Save. And now if we run pytest test main.py, you can see we get all of our tests passed. If we were to change this to even say a 401 and we rerun it, you'll get some information here. So it will run through, it'll see these first 5 tests passed, this one failed, and it will provide some detail down below as to where it failed. So it's pretty helpful. It can be extraordinarily frustrating though, because sometimes it's the error messages can be somewhat cryptic depending on the complexity of your app. Okay, last thing is just debugging. This is really platform specific, so or I should say editor specific. So you can see here I've got my edit configuration in PyCharm. So what you can do, you can create a new fast API run configuration. You're going to select the main file. Okay. You're going to set the reload option. This is where you can set port equals 1234 if you wanted to. I'm not going to do this. You set your interpreter, any other sort of stuff. And then we've seen this before. So instead of doing run, you just do debug. And then if we look at main, so let's do this. Let's go back into here. Docs, items, item ID. So what we're going to do, item ID is going to be 123, cone of silence, because we want to actually get to this breakpoint. So now we hit execute. And you'll see we're actually at the breakpoint here. So we can see item ID is 123, X token is cone of silence. So we can step over is F8 for me. Item ID is not in FakeDB, so we're going to raise the HTTP exception. So that's kind of the debugging section on the docs. Really just it has to do with setting up Fast API in PyCharm and in VS Code, and I would suggest you go there to get that set up. Okay, so I think that's it. Last video tying up loose ends turned out to be a long one. I apologize. We're pushing 25 minutes now. The next series that I'm actually already working on, as I've mentioned, I think in some other videos, is user authentication with email, with things like that in Fast API. That will be out hopefully relatively soon after this video is live. I'm going to do the whole like and subscribe stuff at the end of those videos. I wanted to leave the first one without having shill for subscribers. Although I think I do have 43 as of right now, which is kind of crazy to think about, if I'm being honest. So, okay, that's it for the last time in this video series. I will see you later.